said, do you remember when you came here to have a quantum healing session years ago? Michelle was just getting ready to lay down, and from the ceiling came a white feather and landed on the pillow right where she was getting ready to lay her head and have a session. You're a magical woman, Michelle Walling. I love you.
I love you too, but I can't stop there because I have to tell you, I just listened to a Robert Morningsky video, and he goes back into the creation of the human that we are now and the Anunnaki and everything. And the gift of the feather was what Enki, the Anunnaki, actually snuck into the DNA, which was the ability to become self-aware, because the slaves and the dummies were programmed to be cut off and to do what they were told. So the gift of the feather from the Aku is what he says the Hopi legends are, and that you know that you're in sync with your reality when feathers just literally fall out of the sky. Definitely honor other people's paths. If you see someone struggling, you know, we really aren't, we're here to save people, but we're not. We should only give advice when it's asked of us. We should only give help when it's asked of us. And we're really not here to save anyone else, because that would be like, think about how totally disrespectful that is to someone else's higher self. If what is true, what I just said is true, that every higher self knows exactly what's happening, and they want their aspect of themselves in here to kind of trip up and fall so that they can learn from it. And you see somebody tripping up and falling, and that's what real judgment is about. Real judgment is not judging someone else's tripping and falling, maybe helping them up and supporting them in a way and with love, and maybe helping them if they ask to see, how did I trip up and fall, you know? If they ask. Otherwise, you're just asking for it. But there is, like, I struggle with the word judgment, because the Christians have put this, you know, don't judge others. So that's the Anunnaki wanting you not to judge them. And in the end, they will judge themselves. In the end, what they did wasn't even wrong. It was part of the experience. But I can judge whether I want to support them or not. I can judge whether I want to align with them or not. That's what true judgment for me is. I still, you know, find myself in judgment, but I don't verbalize it to them anymore. I think the reason why I brought a throat issue upon myself is because I was verbalizing it to them. I'm very strong-willed, and I would just tell them what I thought. You shouldn't be doing this, and I see you doing that, and da 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 da, and you know, no, that's not cool. That's going to come back to you every time. So the final work here is to, in 2021, being a real human. Okay. That means being. It means being present, being centered, being balanced, being compassionate, witnessing, holding a higher frequency. Knowing who you are doesn't need to mean I was a Pleiadian, or I was this, or I was that. It doesn't even need to mean that I need to know my past lifetimes, because, you know, like, and you know how Dolores's work actually graduated to where she just went right into speaking to higher selves instead of going into past lifetimes, right? Doesn't even need to know that. It means total allowance and letting you in another frequency be here now. And in doing that, and I'm like getting full chills, in doing that, it changes the DNA back to before it got messed with. And that's a whole nother story, but that's what I feel like that means.
Michelle, we're walking around in a world right now, though, when you were speaking a little bit before about, non-judgment and not wanting others to have to see things the way that you do. But there's a very loud component of society that'll get right up in your face right now and say, you need to do something so that I feel good and safe here. You need to do this. You must. How do you evaluate that current thing that's still happening here in early 2020?
Okay. I'll use the mask as a prime example. Forced mandate to wear a mask and going into a store in Texas. Big freaking deal. I put my mask on right below my nose. Nobody's ever told me, hey, you need to pull that up over your nose. Even in a hospital, they never told me that. Having a balanced perspective of, I don't care whether I wear this mask or not, as long as I'm not suffocating myself by, breathing in all of that mask thing has even gotten blown out of proportion. I'm not going to die from wearing a mask. What's it going to hurt me to wear a mask? It's going with the flow. And if it isn't presented to me in my reality, I'm not going to even worry about it. Let's talk about the V word for a second, because I said I really don't even care about what's happening out there. If that's forced upon me, don't you think that my higher self knows how to repair that in my DNA? It isn't forced upon me. It's still a choice, whether you want to take an experimental thing or not. So if it's not in front of me, is my timeline moving into a higher perspective to where by the time we do this bifurcation, I never had to take it? Possibly so. Other things, taxes have always been something that we've had to comply with. I know some people that didn't comply, and they've been sitting in fear, and they've been having to shelter themselves and not be part of the matrix of business and finance and all that, and they've suffered from it. They haven't been able to enjoy their life very much. I myself complied because I'm playing the game. It's like being on Survivor, when you're in Rome, do is what the other Romans do to a certain extent. It doesn't mean that I agree that I should do it, because there's all these other people saying, well, the Federal Reserve was dissolved, is no longer a real corporation, and you don't have to pay. Well, I don't pay. That's the thing, is I don't pay. So I've scheduled my life around just making what I need and not having an excess to where I give it to them. There's so many different ways you can manipulate your reality to where you're not really complying in the matrix, but you're playing the game of the matrix in order to get through and do what you came here to do, which is learn your lessons, balance your karma, and pull your genetics out so that you can have this body that you can go live on another planet that's not controlled, and it's in a different frequency. And then you decide from there, where do I want to go? Where do I go from here? Then the new school starts. The new challenges begin as to, as all of the energy is being pulled out of this universe. After an expansion, there's going to be a contraction, and the creator pulls itself back in. You keep moving back towards source. And until you're still yourself, you're still your individual self, but you're merged with your higher self in a way that you all exist together as one. And that's what true oneness is. Yes, we all came from the same creator, but do I consider myself oneness with a reptilian who's, wanting to eat me? No, that is another twist on oneness to try to make us, we're all in this together, kumbaya. You're going to forgive me, and you're going to allow me to manipulate you and all that. No, I'm separating myself from that. So I could go on for hours and hours upon this stuff, because when you surrender and you pull yourself away from society in order to work on yourself and figure out what's going on, you have a lot of time to think.
I really wonder what that's like. I haven't had that luxury, although I schedule some quiet time for myself, but I'm simply unable to schedule extended periods of quiet time. And
Well, you didn't need it as much because I don't think you were pulled anywhere. You were holding space, and you are such a compassionate person that you give yourself to everyone else. So, many times I think you've probably learned the lesson. You needed to give a little bit more time for yourself, but you still have to face what's in front of you in every moment. And that may mean difficult tasks for other people. And even the animals that you rescue, for instance, all of that is part of your self-work. So I can't judge, oh, Candace, you don't spend enough time for yourself. You don't sleep 14 hours. You don't rest enough. You're doing exactly what you need to do for your path, whether it be karmic or whether it be that you just simply are so connected that you have enough energy to help. Because there are the helpers, there are the saviors here. It's just that the word savior got totally twisted into something that was used to control us in a different way, and that we would look outside of ourselves. You're actually saving yourself by saving your reality around you. We're not here to save the earth. Remember that. That's what Dolores, has told us. And it's true. I mean, I'm not talking to you, Candace. I'm talking to everybody else. I know you know this. But we're not here to save the planet. We're here to take the genetics and fix what was done to it, and therefore create another holographic reality where we can experience a version of physicality that's not so dense and is more light body based, more fluid. And from there, in that light body, in a fifth dimensional or density is another word that gets, in a fifth density reality or higher, we from there can meet with our even higher self and learn how to traverse the cosmos again without a clank spaceship.
how much, Michelle, has forgiveness work played a part in your sequestering the last couple of years, and particularly forgiveness of self? Can you talk about that?
From the dark place that I was holding space in, I worked on a lot of forgiveness. I even at one point spent 3 days straight crying and in bed, reviewing every single relationship I had. And I mean, it's not like I wasn't connected to my higher self, because it's almost like I had a conversation with a guide over here in my thoughts. And I had to go back in time to when I was 16 and I had my first relationship, and a life review, and witness it, and see how I acted and see how it felt to them, and cry about it and let it go and forgive them and forgive myself, and realize, we're just in a school, and we're, all forgiveness was like, for 3 days I cried. I even had to forgive myself this morning. I soaked in the bathtub, in preparation, and things come to me. I had to forgive myself because I thought I was stupid enough to fall into this alternate reality. But in fact, when I forgave myself, it actually came to me, hey, what if you actually volunteered to come here and jump in there? Oh my God, is that my ego talking to me, or is that real? I'm still working through this just like everyone else. Forgiveness is understanding neutrality, which is unity outside of polarity of good and bad, dark and light. It's a higher frequency. It's more aligned with source, because source created all. So that's how important it is. It is source frequency itself. Besides love, I mean, it's source frequency is everything, but the higher frequencies of source frequency are love and forgiveness and compassion and empathy, and all the things that we have, all the things that the real humans have. So becoming human would be it's really hard to forgive the Anunnaki for what they did, but if they were your children and your children messed up and did something that they didn't realize they were breaking a free will law of the universe, you would, you would try to teach them and support them, even if like your child goes to jail, for instance. They did something really bad. They broke the law, they're in jail. Well, you would go visit them and talk to them and you would forgive them. They're your kids. They're your child and you would forgive them. But would you forget about it? No, you kind of learn from their lessons as well. So it's very important to find a space for forgiveness with a higher understanding of why you're forgiving, not just blatantly, okay, I know I'm supposed to forgive, so okay, I forgive you. That's not a true vibration of forgiveness. It's the act of compassionate understanding from a higher source frequency of they didn't forgive them for they know not what they did type thing. And it's okay because everybody's going to go where everybody needs to go. Everybody's having their own unique experience and their own perspective and their own lessons. And perhaps it was a great thing that they did that so they could really learn from it. And they could become great creators in the future because they've already screwed up so bad that they've already went to the extreme. So if it's a simulation, if it's a holographic school and you graduate and you connect with your higher self and you come out, well, couldn't you be like, aren't you something? Now maybe you could go create universes. Maybe you could go create your own schools. Maybe you could create something new that's never been created, beyond a universe. Who knows? Who knows what's going to come?
Michelle, I want to ask you a question about humans in 2021 and technology. There's a lot of advancement, but we've become so dependent on technology. And then there's the whole concept of transhumanism. And I think it's a very muddied atmosphere. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. There is a transhumanism timeline that needs to continue to happen because that is their path. They don't want to fall off into disillusion. And in the future, there's groups of aliens, ETs, that have seen that their choices along the way have brought them to a place where they no longer have biological avatars or bodies, human bodies to incarnate into on other planets. In a universal school or a universal cycle, when a grand cycle comes to an end and an earth school comes to an end, those who didn't choose the fast track school, the school of hard knocks like we chose, it's okay. They can take as long as they want. But if the school's ending, if the school's out, they can't just go sit in an empty classroom. They're going to have to go to another school. So, or they're going to have to follow a timeline that dissolves into dissolution and their energy gets recycled back to source. So the transhumanist timeline, unfortunately, it's just like Atlantis, pulled people into it that were not supposed to be there. I would say that's pretty parallel with the fall of Atlantis as well. It's all happening kind of at the same timeline. I mean, at the same time, just parallel realities. So we aren't here to stop it. We're not here to stop everything that's happening out there. We're here for two main reasons that I've uncovered. We're here to learn our lessons in school, learn how to become good creators, to not create in distortion. And we're here to get a template reversed, corrected in the DNA so that we can have another existence somewhere else on a higher frequency and keep moving, keep walking. So, but if you're in this reality and you've got 5G towers all around you, and everywhere I've looked for property seems to have a tower out in the middle of nowhere in the country, and I'm trying to get away from towers and it doesn't make sense. And I'm thinking, spending a lot of time and effort running from all this. Why not just sit with it and acknowledge it for what it is trust that my higher self has got this. Even if I experience some bad effects from it, I'll recover. If it gets too bad, I'll move. I need to move, get away from the smart meter, whatever. I still sleep with my internet on. I should turn it off. But this brings me to the beautiful lesson in the Texas ice storm. I was without power for the whole 4 days, from the beginning to the end. And I didn't have, nobody in my area had internet. And I always had this assumption that all we need is just a big power blackout so that people could, so that those frequencies from the moon that are coming through satellites and, you know, this low frequency and this AI through this technology wouldn't be here, and allow me to connect with my higher self. Maybe I could just receive some information, or I had all these assumptions. I was out of power for 4 days and it didn't feel any different to me without having that Wi-Fi on around me. It didn't feel any different. And I was laying there in my sleeping bag with my clothes on and my hat, well, not sleeping bag, but like these heavy covers, and we had a fire going, and it was about 55 degrees in the house most of the time, because I'll tell you how I even got to that. Even having firewood was amazing. But I was sitting there and I was doing my form of meditating, which is just sitting there, and I can't, everything's so like empty when I meditate. It's like nothing happens, you know, but I think a little bit. I don't have the monkey mind, but I'm thinking, well, isn't this interesting? I don't feel a bit different. You know, what a lesson I've learned from this. So that was an interesting thing that happened to me, because at first you become the victim and you can say, how could this be happening on my timeline? Where am I? What the hell is happening here? But I, for 3 years, the past 3 years, got watching these van life videos where people literally aren't being able to afford to live in a house anymore, and they go get like a van and they take all the seats out and they fix the inside of it. They've got, you know, bed and a little sink and a toilet and all kinds of, they camp in their van, or they live in their van. And I love camping. And I had planned on doing a lot of traveling before I met my boyfriend last year. And I had bought a minivan, and I had outfitted the whole inside for camping. And I got all these neat gadgets, like a lithium battery with a solar panel that could literally power my computer while I was on the road. And I got, I had a 1 burner propane stove and extra propane, lots of extra propane. And, you know, all these survival things for camping were right outside in my car. I brought all those in, got the solar panels, hooked everything up. I was able to watch movies on my computer. I was able to cook a gourmet meal. I had a property where, that was a whole nother story. I bought a property and sold it for a profit to the neighbor. But it had a lot of firewood out there, and about a week, and I was selling it, had a contract on it. I said, you know, I really need to run out there. This strong urge. I really need to run out there and get that whole cord of firewood and go ahead and bring it back to the house. And that'll be done. I won't have to worry about it when closing comes. So like 3 days before this ice storm, I didn't even know, I don't watch the news. I didn't know it was coming. I ran out there and got all the firewood and tarped it before the ice and snow came. So we have this little bitty fireplace, and it's not meant to heat the whole house. We have, I don't know, these ceilings are way higher than a normal house. So we've got all the heat going up, got the fireplace is inset, all of the heat's really going up the chimney, but it's very well insulated and it is rocked on the outside. So it did have some kind of thermal effect running the fireplace. We went through about a half a quart of wood. We had to take turns sleeping in front of the fireplace, take turns putting a piece of wood on the fire. The main issue and concern I had, there was no fear, because I was totally prepared. I had everything we needed, except I really wished saying electricity would have come back on. I was worried. We were a little worried about the pipes freezing because that, that's what everybody was worried about. I was worried about the 80-year-old neighbors across the street. We'd call them every now and then. They were fine. It's interesting how people act in a disaster like this. Our neighborhood didn't come together. Nobody came knocking on our door to see how we were doing. We didn't go knocking on their door because I didn't know how long firewood would last. I didn't know it was going to be 4 days. I would have given firewood away freely, but I really didn't know. And I didn't know if they were backdrop people or if they were going to, was the Matrix going to send all the backdrop people in our neighborhood to knock on the door? We give all the firewood away and then we don't have any firewood, So we just stayed to ourselves, called, they were fine across the street. What they didn't tell us, they had a generator. They were nice and toasty and warm. My boyfriend went over there to give them something and they opened the door and it was warm in their house. Never said, by the way, we've got a generator. We did say, by the way, we're burning wood. If you get too cold, come over here and we'll make you a pallet in front of the fire. They just said, oh, thank you so much. But they didn't say, we're nice and toasty here, right? It was interesting how you think the dynamic will be. There was no National Guard. There was no emergency signals. There was, on your phone, there was nothing. There was no help. You were responsible for yourself. And of course, my higher self guided me to be prepared. So it's very interesting how that all worked out. We were the last people in Texas to get electricity back. I live in outskirts of Waco. Even Waco itself and everyone around us except our neighborhood got electricity before we did. And then they had rolling blackouts, but they still were able to. I even had a refrigerator that I could power, a 12-volt refrigerator that I could power with the solar if my freezer started to melt, which it didn't because it was only 55 degrees in the kitchen most times. But I sure was happy when the power came back on. It was something else. I learned a lot, though. I did. But there never was, one thing that happens when you really get what's happening here is you're never afraid to die. You don't want to suffer, but you're never afraid to die, So that never even happened. I was just thinking, this is kind of boring, when is this going to be over?
You know how I spent some of that ice storm up here. I mean, we didn't, of course, we didn't have ice, but we got severe cold. And at one point, we actually had air temperature of -17. And that is the coldest in my own personal memory. And then, of course, wind on top of that. And during some of that, we also lost electricity. And during that exact same time, we lost water.
Yeah, we did too.
We lost water, but I have livestock. And the interesting thing is when we first purchased our property 10 years ago now, 11 years ago, I really wanted a hand pump. And do you know, during all of that, Tom was not in the house. It was just myself and my daughter and my dad. And of course, Dad had to stay inside, of course. But I was hand pumping from our hand pump well buckets of water in this bitter cold. And I couldn't even really get the buckets to the horses before the water was freezing. And they needed to drink it before it was all frozen. It was serious. We have a wood fireplace, so we did fine as far as that went, and it wasn't very long. It was only multiple hours that we were out of both, certainly not multiple days. But my poor chickens, their combs, frostbite. They're still working on getting some new combs because of that's the coldest I've ever had to deal with, and it was something. You really have to think about your physical survival. There were times I'm needing to go out and so I'm telling the house, hey, I'm going to go do this. it's this time, in case, I don't know, I trip over a rock or something and I'm out
Right.
there. That's serious stuff. You probably won't live very long if you can't get up off the ground for whatever reason. It really has you thinking, doesn't it? For me, some of that had me go into, and I love the fact that you're talking about DNA before, because there's so much more about DNA and there's so much more about, I believe personally, our vascular system that is coming online right now. And for me, during that, I kept my ancestors in mind, especially my ancestors, my Russian ancestors who lived in the terrible cold there, and my Nebraska ancestors who were homesteading, 200 years ago, 150 years ago, what they had to go through. And I felt like I called upon characters and actual ancestors to activate within my DNA, give me the metal, give me what I need to propel through this. And it was okay. We got through it all right.
Well, you were just dealing with what was in front of you, but you had also prepared a little bit. And it's a really good lesson to share with everyone else. If you don't have if you know a storm's coming and you didn't go fill your bathtub up with water, or like I did, I filled up, like 7 1-gallon empty water containers that I keep for just that purpose. I had all the water I could need to wash dishes. I could heat the water to wash the dishes. I went and poured water over me in the bathtub, heated water, because I had prepared, because when I did find out we were going to have a cold snap like that, I went and filled up containers. You knew you had this nagging feeling to put this hand pump out there. Now, I'm not saying it wasn't challenging. It was very challenging, because I'd never been through anything like that. I found myself wondering, why am I in Texas? Because if you remember, I lived in Florida for a while. I went to North Carolina and I came back to Texas. If I was just in Florida, that would be cool. But I know I was here for a reason. And yes, things are going to happen outside of us that we have to deal with. But we're experts, or else we wouldn't be here doing this. And I encourage everyone to be a little bit more prepared for things before the bifurcation. We still will witness things. I don't even know what the bifurcation will look like. I hope that, but it could be different for everyone, but it could have a lot of similarities as well. And it could happen at different times for different people, really. It can happen at different times. I don't know if you're getting any information in any of your sessions as to what that is going to look like for that particular person. Have you gotten any of that information yet, or what it will be like when you actually, obviously it's been a slow process. It's been at least since 2012, I think it began. Some of us went off and played with La La Land, and some of us, I think we're actually coming back together as one group moving forward. And although it would be different for people, it still has the same theme. Have you gotten any information on what that looks like? Like, do we just wake up one day? Or, I know it's been slow, is what I was saying, sorry. I know it's been a slow process, but there will be an end point to this.
I think that we've been conditioned to the kind of 2-hour movie concept where, we meet the characters, they go through their struggle, and then there's resolution in the end. I absolutely know with every fiber of my being and every DNA molecule within me that resolution is coming. When, who knows? And I don't see it as a quick and thorough event. I think, as a matter of fact, I'm feeling it right now. I'm feeling my future ancestors. Just, I'm now getting goosebumps. So your question is answered to me energetically by, I'm seeing my daughter, my granddaughters, my grandson, and their children coming up behind me right now to answer you and saying, they're gonna know. they're going to know things that we're not going to be able to talk about, that our lifespan will be completed by then. They're going to know more things, but we're going to see it. We're not missing this boat. We're not missing this boat at all, because that's why we're here. We're so here for that. So I do believe that it's going to be slower, because there's still so many people out there who they haven't immersed themselves in this like we have. They haven't thought about it. And Michelle, I was doing this work for a while. You brought up Lisa Renee in the early part of our interview, and I remember running across her, back before 2012, way back before then, when she was doing this work. And I read some of her stuff about the negative alien agenda, and they're feeding off our energy and everything like that. And it's like, I just set it aside, really wondering about how real that was, that timeline, that concept. She's so smart. I have to read, I don't know about you, I have to read her stuff and read it again, and then maybe read it a third time.
Very detailed.
Yes, she's very dense, very information rich. But the upshot of this is I appreciate her work now way more than I did back then, when I simply wanted to go, and a lot of people would just dismiss some of this information in judgment, calling this like fear, and focusing on manifesting the negative, and well, don't focus on that. And yet she was presenting this information that really, now is coming out very prominently, that there's factual, measurable actions and things going on with humans that tie into everything that she's been talking about for all of those years. And that's coming forth right now. I wasn't ready to see it. I was even doing this work. I was even working with Dolores in the earlier years. I wasn't even ready for that. So if I, after doing this work for a little bit, wasn't ready for that for a while, until I had more time and more self-reflection and more sessions, imagine the people out there who don't consider any of this at all. And they're the majority. So I think it's going to be a slower thing. However, in sessions and in the clients who have a glimpse of some of this, I'm reminded of things that you were talking about earlier again in the interview, which is coming together in large groups. And for me, it's been things like, there's always an open pavilion. It's often a banquet. Sometimes there's dancing. There's a celebration, and it's so spectacular. And you know what? It's so sweet, and it feels so good after what we've been through last year and in the first part of this year as well, that the feeling is ecstasy, being around these other people after being, locked up, so to speak, for all this time, and being silenced for all this time. And then when we can come back like that together, it's going to feel even better. And even though nobody wanted to go through this year, I don't know about you, I had friends who said goodbye to their elderly parents on an iPad, for God's sakes. This is not minimizing the things that people have been through in the last year. We're passing a year for this, but isn't this the way that it really showcases how we are here for the contrast? So we've gone through this really hard time collectively and individually this last year. And when we get some of that back of humans, because humans are social and we need other humans, and in real life too, with real hugs, the ecstasy of that is going to be even sweeter because of what we've been through this last year.
I think the pandemic that happened was actually it was very polarized. It had its good things and it had its bad things. Some of the times when you join together as groups, it's actually feeding ground. You don't even know it's happening. For the transition of where we're moving, we really did need to be sequestered and individualized for a while without any outside influence. So in a way, it was actually amazing. Try to find the positive in everything and try to look at both sides of the polarity. If it's really bad on one end, it's going to have to be really good on the other end, because that's balance. That's the way the universe works. I also think that what I feel like is that this true final bifurcation will happen to some of us while we're still in a physical body, if that's the way our higher self meant for it to happen. The people who are leaving before the bifurcation happens. So to give you an idea when it will happen, I think it will happen in a reasonable time, maybe within 15 years, because if I'm 51 years old, what is my lifespan going to be? And if I'm going to be alive for it, then it's going to happen between now and then for me. If you pass out of the body before it happens, it doesn't mean I didn't succeed. It just means that those people that are leaving, what they're doing is they need some extra healing. And they're probably, from what I understand from Robert Monroe's work, they're probably going to the higher levels of heaven, so to speak, to the libraries and to the healing centers, and they're going to wait until the total shift is time, and then they'll all join us at the same time in the conference room. So we never expected that it would look like the CB. We never expected that. We never expected these polar Arctic. We knew it was going to be tough, but looking at the bigger picture and not judging what's happening and dealing with what's in front of you and doing the best you can, treating others like you want to be treated, forgiving yourself, and letting go and surrendering to what's happening and not trying to control it is very important right now.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I don't know if you've gone through the points that you wanted to talk about all the way. Great.
Yeah, because I'm not going to give details because they're mine. And it is disempowering to not only tell everybody everything, but also I'm sharing what I've uncovered from someone else, from other people. What is my truth today may not be my truth in 6 months, but it got me to where I needed to be. So I don't want to become responsible for giving information to someone in detail and having them take it as their truth. Now I'm responsible for them in a karmic way. So a lot of it has been a broad overview, and you could find the information just as well as I found it by asking and then allowing it to come to you in different ways and not judging how it came to you, whether it's from an outside source or whether it's a remembrance of your own. I do believe, beliefs are tricky, but I do believe there will be that moment where I will make that connection completely and download everything I need to know and allow it to unfold within me. And I do know people that have actually done that. They don't know what everything means yet, but it's within them. It's there, it's within them, and it unfolds. The beauty of sharing without getting caught in a karmic trap is that I can say things that will explain to them what they downloaded. That is why I love to do sessions. I have so much information, but I can't give it unless it's asked for and unless there's an energetic exchange between the two. And I had to learn how to do a session without being karmically responsible for these people. And that's in a balanced, observed way. And when you're asked for the information, you give it. And then, but you empower them. You don't give them everything, and you empower them to, it's so beautiful how it works. Okay. So like before, a day or two before, or even an hour before a session, I'll read something,
Yes.
or I'll have a thought, or I'll change my focus to this little part of the matrix, this little part. And then they'll tell me their problem, and I'll go, well, I just read this and this is what it is. And I just spat it out. I'm not telling them what to do, but they're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I needed to know. And I'm like, you're welcome. It's so easy when you're in the flow and you're not trying to control it. You're not trying to make someone adhere to your protocols, your daily spiritual work that you do, all of the tools that you've used and everything. And you've got to do this. You've got to be a vegan. You've got to meditate a certain way. All these different things you let go, and you just be a human, and you be yourself, and your unique self, and you allow yourself to be guided outside of you if you need, so that you can pass that along to someone else. It's beautiful. And then you have that internal dialogue too, things that you've gone through, and then somebody else contacts you and you've gone through the exact same thing. I even have one client that turned into a friend. Her boyfriend and my boyfriend back then, I mean, she still has hers. They're exactly alike. Everything, except they look different. And so I became a friend of hers because I would voice my concerns about things that they did, and she'd voice hers. And then, but you grow together. And so it's beautiful how something that looks so dire and so chaotic and so ugly actually ends up being, when you're in the flow, it ends up being one of the most rewarding things that can happen to a soul.
And you're taking sessions again, aren't you, Michelle?
Yes. Yep. I started a couple months ago at michellewalling.com. And I should charge more, but I grappled with that for quite a while. I mean, it's only $99 for a 90-minute session. Sometimes I get talking real fast, so I can cover so much material. I mean, I think we've been going a little over 90 minutes, and we've covered so much material. I usually try to empower people and almost never have repeat clients because it's not necessary. Once someone talks, if someone's been in such a chaotic frequency, I'm not saying I wasn't ever able to raise my frequency in that other timeline. That's why I was a special agent, boots on the ground, right? But when I didn't have a high frequency, I quit doing sessions for a while until I got back on track. Sometimes somebody just needs a boost of energy, a boost of frequency, connecting with someone else that has the higher frequency that can pull them up, give them the information, give them the confirmation, reduce their fears, give them some clarity so that they can look at their situation with a different perspective, with different eyes. And that's my specialty. And I am intuitive in that way of being able to just go with my daily flow of whatever comes in front of me, and then that turns around and gets shared, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing.
Synchronicity is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I was looking at some supplements yesterday. I've run out of, just as an example, I've run out of zinc, and I had all these different ones in front of me, and I actually saw that there's like 7 different kinds of zinc out there. And I'm like, well, how is one supposed to figure that out? And I looked at one, and then I looked at the next one, and the next one on the website I was looking at had 4,444 reviews. And I went, that's it.
That's it.
Right. So, I mean, if you just start paying attention a little bit to these little things, when growing up, we were told that looking for a sign was, something to be made fun of. Oh no, people out there, please look for signs. Look for signs all the time. Just keep your eyes open. Sometimes the smallest thing will give you, a nudge in the right direction, or it'll confirm a decision you've tried to make, or it will, send you on the path to find the answer that you've been seeking of. If you just kind of feel into yourself for some of these impulses, or just notice some of these things. And it doesn't always have to be with numbers, right? It could be, there could be all kinds of different ways that this works, but number synchronicities are one of the easier things that show up in our world these days, just because of our current lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's a lesson in learning how to trust ourselves. And how could you be a powerful creator of realities if you don't trust yourself? And um, just, it's all back to that control word. I tried to control my reality because for so long, because I felt like I knew what I was talking about, but since I wasn't having a lot of the experiences that other people were having, secretly I was in the know. I mean, you knew me back then, right? I mean, I was in the know, but I wasn't experiencing things the way other people were experiencing them, and I thought there might be something wrong with me for a while. And it's another lesson in that everybody's experiencing it in their own way, and everybody has their own abilities. And one thing I wanted to talk about, even I learned a lesson about even supplements in a way. When I was sick, I lost 80 pounds over a 1 year period, and I was couldn't hold things down. I was vomiting a lot, and I got to a point where that affected my body so bad that even my stomach, I wasn't getting any supplements. I couldn't take any pills because I couldn't get the pill down my throat. And so I learned, as I watched my fingernails grow, that supplements aren't what makes your nails grow. As a matter of fact, when a body dies, the hair and nails can keep growing.
Yeah.
Now my kidneys were affected, and I had kidney stones last year, and different things spiraled down from there, but I'm recovering from a lot of that. And my body is still not able to 100% my stomach acids break down a pill form and take a supplement yet. I mean, I do, and it does take some of it, but it's a weird thing as to individually what you need and what your body's going to be able to do. So that's always been something that I've talked about, but I didn't really live it until I lived it. You know what I mean? I always tell people, you don't have to be a vegan if your bloodline, maybe you have more reptilian lifetimes, even if they were benevolent reptilians. Reptilians eat meat, and maybe you need meat. Maybe your counterpart, your other lifetime as a reptilian, maybe it's munching down on a cow right now, or whatever they munch down on, which we won't get into. And maybe you happen to be an Arcturian who is a vegan and only eats plants, but plants have consciousness too. Plants are giving themselves up as well too. So that's kind of like a double standard to say that can't eat meat because you're eating a consciousness or whatever. But forget all that stuff and do what you need to do for yourself, and do the supplements that you're guided to do, and don't get stuck in a routine that isn't working for you anymore. The biggest thing you can do is change. When things aren't working, besides stopping like I did, besides just stopping everything and I had to live on Bluebell ice cream. The funniest thing, that's made here in Texas, in Brenham, Texas. I had to live on Bluebell ice cream. It gave me sugar, gave me calories, and I threw up less on it for a long time, like months, until I was able to figure out how to force foods down my throat. And I didn't have any health insurance, and I didn't trust the medical system. So, and I trusted I wasn't going to die. See, I didn't, as a matter of fact, I didn't care if I died. Let's just put it that way. Not that I willed myself to, but it's just that I wasn't in fear of it. And I was just, every day I'd get up and walk a very difficult path until it got me to where I am now. But we have to trust ourselves, was what I started out by saying implicitly, and not the false ego self.
Well, glad you're back.
I think I've said everything that I could say without repeating myself for the amount of information I wanted to share. If if you're just starting out and you're awakening and you want to learn more about things like a matrix, what a matrix is, what it, if you can, like I said, if you use the word matrix with Earth School, with holographic reality, with, a game, I like to use the word game a lot.
Sure.
You can read about some of the older articles on how to exit the matrix.com, but don't get too lost in all that stuff. I've said that many times on interviews with you. Observe it for what it is and move on. It just gives you an understanding of, some people really want to know what's happening and why the world is the way that it is. Why is our government not helping us? Why do they not treat us, like we want to be treated? Why are we under so much oppression and control? Why is it so chaotic? If you have those questions, you can find the answers out there on the right websites. But I haven't posted there in a very long time, but I am going to, because where I was, if I gave information or posted too much without it being solicited, it was literally, like I said, boomeranged back to me in ways that would try to suppress me and stop me. But since I'm not in that reality anymore, it's safe for me to get a second chance and post the right information with the right intention on allowing someone to come to their own conclusions about what's happening with themselves. And so that's where you can find, hopefully pretty soon, new articles, because I feel like I've had all my energy returned to me in the last couple of days. And on April 15th, when this will air, it will have been a couple of weeks, and I think there will be a lot of people go, oh my gosh, that's what happened to me.
I can't wait to see what happens in the next month. And I'm so glad to hear that you're going to be writing again, because I know a lot of people have been waiting to hear from you, Michelle. Michelle, thank you so much for, for everything. I know that sometimes long periods of time go before we call or text or see each other. I think about you every day. I don't know if you remember this. You gave me a little pyramid, orgonite pyramid. That's by my bedside lamp. So I think about you every morning when I turn on the light and every evening when I turn it off, if I haven't thought about you throughout the day. And I love you. And I know so many others out there love you too. Thank you so much.
I love you too, Candace. It's so bizarre and synchronistic, but my orgonite pyramid is right by my bedside too, and neither one of us knew that. I support Beyond Quantum Healing more than anything else that I have ever supported, and I'm very grateful for all the stuff, for holding the space and the real timeline, for creating a new method to where people can speak to their higher self when they're in a place on a timeline where they don't feel connected. It's so important right now, because the higher self is everything. The higher self is the source. That is who we are, and that is who we're becoming as a human here embodied. And if anyone wants to take the BQH practitioner course, I have a code, because you and I work together closely, and it's in all capitals. You can go to Beyond Quantum Healing. What's the website?
quantumhealers.com. It's our directory.
Okay.
Quantumhealers.com is where you can find out all about it.
Okay. My code to get a 10% discount off of Candace's course that she created to learn how to become a practitioner is all caps, exit the matrix 10. And you'll get 10% off your course. And I'm going to be sharing this video with people that have followed me in the past, and I didn't really want to be followed, but it's just how it all happened. And I'm going to share this video with everyone, and I appreciate the opportunity to come back out again and speak I can imagine doing it with anybody else. I just feel so comfortable with you, and I know you're a kindred spirit, and I know that we planned this a long time ago. So gosh, I got to hand it to you for everything that's happening in your life and that you're dealing with, and you're still able to fit all that you do in 24 hours. You're great. Thanks a lot, Candace. I love you too.
I love you so much, Michelle. I feel so connected to you too. I'm just now looking at the sleigh bed. Do you remember when you came here to have a quantum healing session years ago? Michelle was just getting ready to lay down, and from the ceiling came a white feather and landed on the pillow right where she was getting ready to lay her head and have a session. You're a magical woman, Michelle Walling. I love you.
I love you too, but I can't stop there because I have to tell you, I just listened to a Robert Morningsky video, and he goes back into the creation of the human that we are now and the Anunnaki and everything. And the gift of the feather was what Enki, the Anunnaki, actually snuck into the DNA, which was the ability to become self-aware, because the slaves and the dummies were programmed to be cut off and to do what they were told. So the gift of the feather from the Aku is what he says the Hopi legends are, and that you know that you're in sync with your reality when feathers just literally fall out of the sky. And one time I was in the pool with Greg in Florida, and we had just watched that video, and we have a screen over the pool, and we're sitting there talking, and a feather just falls right between us into the pool. So I couldn't end without saying that those are the magical things that I missed that are now starting to come back around again. And the gift of the feather. So many red birds cardinals have come up in my reality too. And I found a shirt the other day at Kohl's on clearance for $3 with a red cardinal on it. And I had to get it, like, give me that. Just all these little things mean that your higher self and your guidance team, which is your other selves, besides just your higher self, your other reality, your other higher lifetimes, are all watching. They're all with you. They can't force you to do something, to see something, but they're telling you all the time, we're here, you're making it, you're going to be okay. And it's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
It's a beautiful thing. Great place
Okay.
to end. When you feel like coming back out and talking again, would you give me a call?
I will. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Stay
everyone.
tuned for the next Quantum Realm segment coming up.